This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on AFR Talk. Listen to the audio podcast or download today's program at afr.net. You can also read Brian Fisher's columns at onenewsnow.com. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us anytime at focalpoint@afr.net. Focalpoint@afr.net.
Hi, welcome back to this Monday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. You know, and there was this myth out there, and I want to get back to what Carol Costello said, that she thinks that science is opposed to Hobby Lobby's view on abortifacients, and she's exactly 100% wrong. She's upside down. She thinks she's the enlightened one, but she's the one who is scientifically, medically, biologically confused. It's the liberal. These are the people that think they're so much smarter than you and I. They're so much more enlightened. They're so much more educated. We're ignorant. We're dumb. We're uneducated. We're hicks. We're backwoods. We're rednecks. We don't know anything about anything. That's the way they view us. And she's the one that is scientifically confused. You and I, we understand the science, the biology of how these prescription medications work. And so does Hobby Lobby. They say that's why we are not going to provide those kind of prescription medications to our employees. We are not going to pay for babies' lives to be destroyed at the earliest stage of development. So again, it's the left that is anti-science. Do not let people lie to you about this, ladies and gentlemen. The left is going to try to convince you that you and I, that we are the anti-science ones. We are not. They are the anti-science ones. We are pro-science when it comes to origins, when it comes to the development of life, when it comes to global warming, when it comes to abortion. We are firmly rooted and grounded in science and the best in medical research. Same is true when we come to the issues of sexuality. Our positions, all of them, can be substantiated based on what we know to be true about genetics and about medical research and about health research. So we're the ones that are rooted and locked into science because we believe, as I said at the end of the last segment, it's not possible. It is not possible for there to be a conflict between good science and good theology. It's impossible because God is the author of both. You cannot. It's impossible to have a conflict between good science and good theology. If you've got a conflict between science and theology, either the science is bad or the theology is bad. So you can have a conflict between bad science and good theology. You can have a conflict between bad theology and good science, but you cannot, it's impossible to have a conflict between good theology and good science because God is the author of both. Now, Hobby Lobby understands that. Carol Costello, and she thinks she's the smartest person in the room. She's the one that is ignorant when it comes to the science of reproduction. Now, one other thing on this, and we'll take your calls, 888-589-8840 is the number. I'd like to have you weigh in on this Hobby Lobby case, 888-589-8840. So, again, that number is 888-589-8840. You know, as I mentioned, this was about the Supreme Court dealing with what's called RFRA. This is a Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Comes from 1993. Now, the Democrats are out there. They're in hysterics today. They're wringing their hands. They're crying. They're moaning. It's the end of the world. It's the end of women's reproductive health. These evil, mean, wascally males on the Supreme Court are making decisions controlling reproductive health for women. Nothing could be further from the truth. There is no contraception that's been banned. These medications, which I find obscene from a pro-life standpoint, are still available. Nobody's stopping anybody from going in and paying their own money to buy these things. So there's no restriction on anybody's freedom to get these contraceptions. If they want to abort their baby at the earliest stage of development, there is nothing that can stop them from doing that. And this Supreme Court ruling doesn't do that. So it's just absurd. It simply protects the right of Hobby Lobby to decide what kind of prescriptions it's going to provide for its employees, and it's not going to provide prescriptions that violate its conscience. And the Supreme Court says you have the right under our system of government, under RFRA, to do that. So this is a triumph for RFRA. So RFRA is the culprit here, this Religious Freedom Restoration Act. It's the culprit. And you got all these liberals, all these Democrats out there moaning about this and what a tremendous shame this is and what a loss this is and what a horrible bill this Religious Freedom Restoration Act is from 1993. Well, listen to this. This is what a lot of people are forgetting, that RFRA, the law that the Supreme Court upheld today and used to protect religious liberty for Hobby Lobby, was sponsored and written by Chuck Schumer. This is a Democrat bill. The Democrats wrote this bill that the Supreme Court upheld today. This is 1993. Who signed it into law? A Democrat president, Bill Clinton. And it passed the Senate 97-3. 97-3. So it's bipartisan. Democrats all over the fruited plain joined with Republicans all over the fruited plain to pass RFRA. So now the liberals are acting like they had nothing to do with it and as a horrible piece of legislation from the beginning. Now, a couple of other things that you'll observe as you look at the press and the media coverage of this ruling, this Hobby Lobby ruling. And again, let's not mistake the fact this is a huge win for religious liberty. I mean, there's a lot of other issues and angles that we're talking about here. This is a huge win for religious liberty, and you know it because of the people that were against it. Because Sonia Sotomayor was against it, because Elena Kagan was against it, because Ruth Bader Ginsburg was against it, because Stephen Breyer was against it. You know, as an absolute matter of fact, that this had to be an outstanding ruling. If it's dealing with the sanctity of life and religious liberty, and they're against it, that means this ruling is a great ruling. Now, what you're going to hear a lot from the media is that this was a narrow ruling, 5-4. You know, and they're right about that. But they never talk about how rulings that go their way on a 5-4 vote are narrow. They never use that. They just say the Supreme Court decided, the Supreme Court determined. But when they lose one 5-4, all of a sudden this was a narrow ruling. But they're exactly right about this. And that shows you the danger that we're in, that religious liberty and the sanctity of life today was hanging in our nation's highest court by one vote. That is how slender the thread is on which our religious liberty and the sanctity of life are suspended right now in America. One vote. This thing had gone one vote the other way. Religious liberty would be gone. Sanctity of life would be in the dumpster. Now, you're going to hear the left bloviating about how this is an all-out assault on reproductive freedom. Nothing of the sort. Kay Hagan, the senator from North Carolina, saying this is an assault on women's access. It's not. They can still get it. You can get contraceptives for $9 a month, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't going to keep anybody that wants it from being able to get contraception. Now, one other thing is I think it's significant that John Roberts joined the majority on this because, you know, when a referee blows a call in a game, sometimes it's just human nature. He's going to do a makeup call later in the game. He blew a call in the first half. He called pass interference, and it wasn't there. So in the second half, he's going to make it up by calling a penalty that wasn't there on the other team to sort of balance the scales. It's just kind of human nature to want to do that in the pursuit of being even-handed and fair. Now, I think for John Roberts, this was a makeup vote. I think when John Roberts joins the majority here, he was admitting that he blew it when he upheld Obamacare to begin with, that was a mistake. He had to torture logic. He had to torture the Constitution to come up with that ruling. And I think he is admitting today to the entire world that he blew it, and he knows he blew it. And this was a makeup call on his part. So I think that's part of the, you know, it's interesting, significant on a ruling of this magnitude. He didn't write it. He did not write either one of the opinions today. And I think that's because he's embarrassed. I think, frankly, John Roberts is embarrassed that he's the reason we have this chaos in healthcare today. So that's John Roberts, I think, on a makeup vote. 888-589-8840 is the number, 888-589-8840. White House, by the way, coming out swinging. They're not done. They're going to try to resort now to congressional action to provide contraception coverage. Well, that's what Obamacare is. That was congressional action to provide contraception coverage, and the Supreme Court blew it out of the tub. So, again, there's just no quit in President Obama. Here's what his spokesman said: "We will work with Congress to make sure any woman affected by this decision are not denied access to contraceptive services." Even Anthony Kennedy in his ruling said that the government can cover the cost, but cannot compel private employers to do so. So I believe what we're going to have, this is my prediction, President Obama is simply going to issue an executive order requiring taxpayer funding for all contraceptives. Every woman in America is going to have taxpayer-funded contraceptions by the time President Obama, just by executive order, because I don't think it's not going to get through Congress. No way the House of Representatives is going to go for that. So I think he's just going to issue an executive order. And even the White House today said, look, President Obama will, this is a quote, will consider whether the president can act on his own to mitigate the effect of a Supreme Court ruling. So President Obama is already looking how he can act on his own to overturn this thing. Josh Earnest said women should be able, quote, to make personal health decisions for themselves, end quote. They still can. This doesn't limit any woman's freedom to do whatever she wants when it comes to these prescription medications. So that's what's going on there. Let's go to the phones, 888-589-8840. Don't forget, by the way, that the Little Sisters of the Poor, you still got 300 cases out there, 300 family businesses, schools, and religious organizations that still have their cases tied up in court. So they're still pending. Let's go to Terry in New Albany, Mississippi. Terry, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
Yes, thank you, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your show there. You do a great job in service for humanity and for God.
Well, thank you.
Listen, I agree wholeheartedly, and I'm thankful to God that I believe a lot of Christians have been praying that it's turned out this way, and we need to keep praying. But here's my thing. I want to talk about the Senate race in Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
I'm a pastor. I've pastored 6 different churches in Mississippi. I know something of the mindset of people, and not that this is law or not that I'm judging anybody's heart, but I think I know something of the feel of the different types of people in Mississippi. I believe, and this is my just personal opinion, there's about a third of the people that are really, truly, genuinely born again, who have a relationship with Jesus Christ, that really love Him and know Him. Not that I judge anybody's heart or know anybody specifically. I believe we have the mindset of the good old boy network, that is, might makes right. It's the power thing. I think that's
Terry,
what.
Terry, let me interject. Could I ask you to stay on for 2 more minutes? I'd like to finish our conversation. I want to rush it. Can you stay on for 2 more minutes?
Sure.
Okay,
yeah.
we'll pick up our conversation right after the break. So hold your thought, and we'll pick up right where you left off. And we will start talking about this runoff race in Mississippi. Got some new information to bring you on that, late-breaking developments. You're listening to Focal Point on AFR Talk. This is Brian Fisher. Stay with us.